You think your grocery bill is expensive? Meet the planets that grow your food. The Imperium's agricultural worlds feed quadrillions of human mouths across 10,000 systems, their soil enriched with the ground bones of previous generations and watered with the tears of the condemned. These verdant paradises appear in propaganda broadcasts as golden fields stretching toward crimson horizons, where honest laborers sing hymns of gratitude while harvesting the emperor's bounty. The reality involves industrial farming complexes that span continents, atmospheric processors that convert human waste into breathable air, and agricultural quotas measured in megatons of processed flesh. Paradise has a body count, and someone has to maintain the ledgers. Every bite of food consumed in the Imperium traces back to these worlds, where humanity has perfected the art of transforming life into sustenance through methods that would horrify the ancient farmers of Terra. The agricultural industrial complex operates with mechanical precision across 300,000 designated food-producing planets, each specialized for particular crops, livestock, or processed organic materials. Some worlds grow grain in endless monocultures that stretch from pole to pole. Others breed livestock in factory farms that house billions of animals in conditions designed to maximize protein yield while minimizing space requirements. The most productive specialize in corpse starch cultivation, transforming the deceased into nutritionally complete meal substitutes through processes sanctified by the Adeptus Mechanicus and blessed by the Ecclesiarchy. The mathematics of imperial nutrition follow inexorable logic that reduces human existence to caloric input and metabolic output. Each citizen requires 2,847 calories daily to maintain baseline productivity, modified by factors including age, occupation, genetic heritage, and loyalty rating. Multiply this by current population estimates, and the Imperium must produce 121.7 trillion calories every 24 hours to prevent systemic starvation. The agricultural worlds deliver this bounty through farming techniques that sacrifice everything: soil health, genetic diversity, worker safety, environmental stability, in pursuit of maximum yield per cultivated hectare. To understand why agricultural paradise becomes terrestrial hell, start at the beginning. The transition from traditional farming to industrial agriculture began during the Age of Strife, when collapsing trade networks forced individual worlds to achieve food security through local production. Early attempts followed conventional agricultural methods, establishing family farms and regional cooperatives that produced diverse crops using sustainable techniques inherited from the dark age of technology. These approaches proved inadequate when imperial expansion created demand for exponential production increases to feed growing populations and military forces. The breakthrough came through Mechanicus research into biological optimization, which revealed that traditional farming wasted enormous potential by prioritizing long-term sustainability over immediate productivity. Agricultural worlds could increase yields by orders of magnitude through intensive chemical enhancement, genetic modification of crops and livestock, and systematic elimination of inefficient farming practices. The transformation required substantial initial investment in infrastructure, equipment, and specialized personnel, but promised to solve imperial food security permanently through applied technological supremacy. The first comprehensive agricultural conversion occurred on Abundantia Prime, a temperate world with extensive arable land and favorable climate conditions. Imperial planners divided the planet into 17 distinct agricultural zones, each optimized for specific crop types and livestock breeds. Traditional farms disappeared beneath massive cultivation complexes equipped with atmospheric processors, soil enhancement systems, and automated harvesting equipment. Local populations underwent relocation and retraining, transforming from independent farmers into specialized agricultural workers assigned to particular roles within the larger production system. Results exceeded all expectations. Abundantia Prime's food production increased 847% during the first operational year, establishing benchmark efficiency standards that would guide agricultural policy across the expanding Imperium. The planet's success demonstrated that worlds could be systematically redesigned to function as biological factories, converting raw materials, soil, water, atmospheric gases, organic waste, human labor, into processed food products suitable for interstellar distribution. The Abundantia model became mandatory template for agricultural world development. Imperial survey teams identified planets with suitable climate and soil conditions, then authorized comprehensive terraforming programs to optimize them for maximum food production. Natural ecosystems disappeared beneath geometric cultivation grids. Native species faced extinction through habitat destruction and chemical contamination. Local populations underwent integration into agricultural labor forces through programs combining voluntary relocation, economic incentive, and judicial compulsion. The process typically required 3 decades to achieve full operational capacity. Initial phases involved infrastructure construction, processing facilities, atmospheric modification systems, transportation networks, worker housing complexes. Middle phases focused on biological optimization, soil treatment, genetic crop modification, livestock breeding programs, chemical application systems. Final phases emphasized productivity, maximization, quota establishment, efficiency monitoring, quality control implementation, and worker performance evaluation. Each converted world developed distinctive characteristics based on local conditions and specialized production requirements. Grain worlds featured endless fields of genetically modified cereals, their surfaces carved into precise geometric patterns visible from orbital altitude. Protein worlds concentrated on livestock production, housing billions of animals in vast complexes that processed life into consumable products with industrial efficiency. Processing worlds specialized in transforming organic waste, including human remains, into nutritionally complete food substitutes suitable for mass distribution. The theological framework that justified these transformations drew heavily from imperial doctrine emphasizing human dominion over nature and divine mandate for species survival. Agricultural worlds represented humanity's mastery over chaotic natural forces, imposing order and productivity upon previously wild landscapes through application of superior technology and organized labor. The suffering involved: environmental destruction, population displacement, worker exploitation, constituted necessary sacrifice for the greater good of imperial survival against hostile universe, determined to eliminate human existence. Regional variations emerged based on local environmental conditions and strategic requirements. Desert worlds developed hydroponic cultivation systems that produced vast quantities of water-efficient crops using recycled atmospheric moisture and processed organic waste. Ocean worlds established floating agricultural platforms that harvested both marine life and cultivated sea-based vegetation. Frozen worlds utilized geothermal energy to maintain massive greenhouse complexes that operated independent of local climate conditions. The most successful conversions involved worlds with minimal existing populations and ecosystems, allowing planners to implement optimal agricultural designs without resistance from entrenched interests. These greenfield projects achieved maximum efficiency through comprehensive environmental modification, unconstrained by previous land use patterns or local political considerations. The populations recruited to work these worlds typically came from overcrowded hive worlds, where agricultural employment offered improved living conditions despite harsh working requirements. However, converting inhabited worlds with established agricultural traditions proved more challenging and typically resulted in higher casualty rates during the transition period. Local farmers often resisted displacement from ancestral lands, requiring military intervention to enforce compliance with agricultural conversion mandates. Traditional farming communities possessed cultural knowledge and established practices that conflicted with industrial agricultural methods, necessitating extensive re-education programs that frequently eliminated entire populations through systematic cultural destruction. The economic incentives that drove agricultural conversion reflected imperial resource allocation priorities that valued immediate production increases over long-term sustainability considerations. Planetary governors received substantial rewards for achieving agricultural productivity targets, while failure to meet quotas resulted in administrative sanctions ranging from budget reductions to removal from office. These incentives created powerful pressures to maximize short-term yields through intensive farming methods regardless of environmental or social consequences. The Adeptus Mechanicus provided essential technical support throughout the conversion process, developing specialized equipment and procedures optimized for large-scale agricultural production. Their contributions included atmospheric processors that maintained optimal growing conditions, soil enhancement systems that increased crop yields through chemical modification, and automated harvesting equipment that eliminated dependence on unreliable human labor for routine operations. However, Mechanicus' involvement also introduced theological complications that required careful management to prevent conflicts between agricultural efficiency and religious doctrine. Names matter here because each name decides a fate. The soil compaction specialist operates massive terraforming equipment designed to prepare planetary surfaces for optimal crop cultivation. Their daily responsibilities include geological survey, mineral extraction, and systematic elimination of unsuitable terrain features that would interfere with agricultural operations. The work requires operation of continent-spanning machinery capable of processing billions of tons of raw earth per operational cycle, transforming chaotic natural landscapes into geometrically precise cultivation grids suitable for mechanized farming operations. Specialists develop intimate knowledge of planetary geology, learning to read soil composition, mineral content, and subsurface water tables with the same precision once reserved for religious texts. Most suffer chronic respiratory ailments from atmospheric contamination and die within 7 years of continuous exposure to processing chemicals. The genetic crop modifier designs and implements biological enhancements that increase plant yields while reducing growing time and resource requirements. Each modification requires extensive laboratory work involving cellular manipulation, chromosomal adjustment, and systematic testing to ensure compatibility with local environmental conditions. Modifiers learn to treat living organisms as mechanical systems requiring optimization rather than natural entities deserving preservation, developing genetic alterations that prioritize productivity over species survival. Their creations often produce crops with enhanced nutritional content, but reduced genetic diversity, creating systemic vulnerabilities that require constant monitoring and adjustment. The position attracts individuals with advanced technical training but limited ethical flexibility, as the work demands both scientific precision and moral numbness. The Livestock Productivity Coordinator manages breeding programs designed to maximize meat and dairy production through systematic application of genetic modification, chemical enhancement, and behavioral conditioning. Coordinators oversee facilities housing millions of animals in conditions optimized for rapid growth and efficient processing rather than animal welfare considerations. Their responsibilities include nutrition planning, medical treatment, and elimination of unproductive specimens through methods that prioritize efficiency over humane treatment. The work requires detailed knowledge of animal physiology combined with complete suppression of empathetic responses to animal suffering. Most coordinators develop characteristic emotional flatness and avoid personal pet ownership. The atmospheric composition technician maintains planetary air quality within parameters suitable for optimal crop growth and worker survival. Technicians monitor atmospheric processors that convert industrial waste, organic decay, and chemical byproducts into breathable air enriched with growth-promoting compounds. Their workstations resemble chemical laboratories more than traditional farming environments, filled with complex equipment that measures atmospheric content down to individual molecular components. The position requires extensive training in chemistry and atmospheric science, combined with tolerance for working in environments where air quality hovers at the threshold of human survivability. Chronic exposure to atmospheric processors typically results in pulmonary complications that require regular medical intervention. The Harvest Efficiency Auditor evaluates agricultural worker performance against established productivity quotas, identifying individuals whose output falls below acceptable standards and recommending corrective action ranging from additional training to immediate termination. Auditors possess absolute authority to modify worker assignments, adjust production schedules, and eliminate positions that fail to meet efficiency requirements. Their evaluations determine worker survival, as consistent underperformance typically results in reassignment to more dangerous duties or processing into corp starch production systems. The work requires analytical skills and psychological detachment, as auditors must make life and death decisions based purely on productivity metrics rather than individual circumstances or human considerations. The corpse starch production supervisor manages facilities that convert human remains into nutritionally complete food supplements suitable for mass distribution throughout the Imperium. Supervisors oversee all aspects of the production process, from receipt of raw materials through final packaging and quality control. Their facilities process thousands of bodies daily, transforming deceased Imperial citizens into protein-rich meal substitutes that meet established nutritional standards while eliminating waste from the human life cycle. The position requires strong administrative skills and complete emotional disconnection from the source materials being processed. Most supervisors develop elaborate mental rituals that allow them to view their work as sacred recycling rather than systematic cannibalism. The chemical application strategist designs and implements pest control programs that eliminate organisms threatening agricultural productivity through systematic application of toxins, biological weapons, and environmental modification. Strategists command arsenals of chemical weapons capable of eliminating entire species while preserving targeted crop varieties, achieving precise biological destruction that supports agricultural objectives. Their work requires extensive knowledge of ecology and chemistry, combined with strategic thinking about biological warfare applications. The position offers significant authority and resource access, but demands psychological flexibility regarding mass extinction as acceptable agricultural practice. The worker nutrition calculator determines daily caloric allocations for agricultural personnel based on productivity requirements, medical status, and loyalty ratings. Calculators must balance worker health against resource efficiency, ensuring that personnel receive sufficient nutrition to maintain productivity while minimizing food waste on populations whose economic value fluctuates based on performance metrics. Their decisions directly influence worker survival rates, as inadequate nutrition inevitably leads to decreased productivity and eventual elimination. The position requires mathematical precision and moral flexibility, as calculators must treat human sustenance as purely economic calculation rather than basic survival requirement. The seasonal migration coordinator manages the movement of agricultural workers between different cultivation zones based on seasonal production requirements and worker survival rates. Coordinators must balance labor needs against transportation costs, worker health considerations, and environmental hazards that vary by location and season. Their decisions determine which workers survive seasonal transitions and which face elimination through exposure to unsuitable conditions. The work requires logistical expertise and strategic thinking about human resources as expendable components in larger agricultural systems. Most coordinators develop detailed actuarial models that predict worker survival rates under various environmental conditions. The bio-waste reclamation engineer designs systems that convert organic waste, including deceased workers, failed crops, and animal remains, into useful products ranging from fertilizer to construction materials. Engineers must optimize waste processing to extract maximum utility from materials that would otherwise represent economic loss, developing increasingly sophisticated methods for transforming death into productive resources. Their innovations often determine facility profitability, as effective waste management can convert apparent losses into significant economic gains. The position demands technical expertise and creative thinking about death as raw material rather than natural conclusion to life processes. The quality control assessor evaluates food products for contamination, nutritional content, and suitability for human consumption before authorizing shipment to distribution centers throughout the Imperium. Assessors must identify potential health hazards while maintaining production schedules that prioritize efficiency over safety considerations. Their approval determines whether potentially contaminated food reaches Imperial populations or undergoes additional processing that reduces productivity quotas. The work requires detailed knowledge of food chemistry and toxicology combined with risk assessment capabilities that balance public health against economic requirements. Most assessors develop chronic health problems from exposure to contaminated samples and maintain detailed personal food safety protocols. On the ground, it reduces to a timetable and a heartbeat. Dawn arrives on Agri World Demeter 7th at 0347 local time, announced by atmospheric processors that shift from night cycle waste processing to day cycle oxygen enrichment with mechanical precision that has operated unchanged for 3 centuries. The transition creates characteristic atmospheric disturbances, pressure changes, temperature variations, chemical composition adjustments that wake agricultural workers more reliably than traditional alarm systems. Sleep periods end exactly as respiratory systems detect increased oxygen concentrations and atmospheric processors achieve optimal growing condition parameters. Worker Housing Complex. 847 Delta houses 12,000 agricultural personnel in standardized dormitories designed to maximize occupancy while minimizing construction and maintenance costs. Each dormitory room accommodates 16 workers in bunks, arranged according to efficiency protocols developed through extensive optimization research. Personal space allocation allows 2.3 cubic meters per individual, sufficient for basic necessities, but insufficient for privacy or personal expression. Shared facilities include communal washing areas, nutrition distribution centers, and recreational spaces equipped with approved entertainment materials. Morning nutrition distribution begins at 0400 hours with workers proceeding through automated feeding stations that dispense individualized meal allocations based on work assignments, productivity ratings, and medical requirements. The nutrition consists primarily of processed agricultural products produced on-world, grain-based carbohydrate supplements, protein extracts from livestock processing facilities, and vitamin compounds synthesized from organic waste materials. Each meal provides exactly the caloric content required for anticipated daily labor output, calculated according to individual metabolic profiles maintained by medical personnel. Work assignment notifications arrive through dormitory communication systems at 0415 hours, informing workers of their specific duties, location assignments, and productivity quotas for the current operational period. Agricultural operations follow seasonal cycles that require different personnel configurations throughout the growing year, with workers frequently reassigned between cultivation zones, processing facilities, and harvesting operations based on immediate production requirements. The assignment system prioritizes operational efficiency over worker preference or specialized training, treating human resources as interchangeable components rather than skilled professionals. Transportation to work sites occurs via automated rail systems that connect worker housing complexes to agricultural zones across planetary surfaces. Transport vehicles operate on fixed schedules designed to deliver appropriate numbers of workers to each facility at precisely the time when their labor becomes necessary. The journey to most work sites requires 30 to 90 minutes, depending on seasonal assignments and current operational requirements. Workers use transport time for additional rest, review of safety protocols, or quiet contemplation of daily responsibilities. Cultivation Zone 23 Alpha spans 847 square kilometers of genetically modified grain production, its geometric precision visible from orbital surveillance stations as perfect hexagonal segments arranged in continental scale patterns. The zone operates through coordinated interaction between automated systems and human labor, with machinery handling large-scale operations while workers perform detailed tasks requiring manual dexterity and decision-making capabilities. Atmospheric conditions within the zone are maintained by localized environmental control systems that optimize growing conditions through continuous monitoring and adjustment. Field worker Thessa Meridian, designation 23 Alpha 7749, has spent 18 months working grain cultivation operations, progressing from basic harvesting duties to specialized pest management responsibilities. Her current assignment involves systematic inspection of crop health across assigned grid squares, identification of disease or contamination problems, and application of appropriate countermeasures ranging from chemical treatment to complete crop elimination. The work requires detailed knowledge of plant pathology combined with rapid decision-making under time pressure imposed by productivity quotas. Her daily routine begins with equipment distribution at 0500 hours, including protective clothing, chemical application devices, monitoring instruments, and communication equipment necessary for coordination with other field personnel. Equipment distribution follows strict protocols designed to ensure worker safety while minimizing resource waste, with each item tracked through comprehensive inventory systems that monitor usage patterns and replacement requirements. Workers receive training in proper equipment maintenance and face penalties for damage or loss of assigned materials. The inspection process follows systematic procedures designed to maximize coverage while maintaining quality control standards. Workers proceed through assigned grid squares in predetermined patterns that ensure complete coverage without unnecessary duplication of effort. Each square receives detailed examination for signs of disease, pest infestation, nutrient deficiency, or environmental damage that might compromise crop yields. Identification of problems triggers immediate response protocols ranging from localized treatment to coordination with specialized response teams. Chemical application represents the most hazardous aspect of fieldwork, requiring precise measurement and distribution of compounds designed to eliminate threats to agricultural productivity. Workers must achieve complete elimination of targeted organisms while avoiding damage to crops or contamination of soil and water resources needed for continued production. The chemicals involved pose significant health risks to workers despite protective equipment, with chronic exposure typically resulting in respiratory, dermatological, and neurological complications that require ongoing medical intervention. Communication with supervisory personnel occurs through regular status reports submitted via portable communication devices that monitor worker location and productivity throughout operational periods. Supervisors track individual performance against established benchmarks, identifying workers whose output falls below acceptable standards and implementing corrective measures, ranging from additional training to immediate reassignment. The monitoring system operates continuously, creating detailed records of worker efficiency that determine continued employment and resource allocation decisions. Midday nutrition breaks occur at scheduled intervals designed to maintain worker energy while minimizing disruption to operational schedules. Workers receive portable nutrition supplements calculated to restore energy expenditure without requiring return to central distribution facilities. Break duration varies based on environmental conditions and operational requirements, with longer breaks authorized during extreme temperature periods or intensive labor operations. Workers use break time for rest, equipment maintenance, and coordination with colleagues regarding work progress and potential problems. Afternoon assignments often involve different activities based on seasonal requirements and operational priorities. Grain cultivation cycles require varying types of labor throughout growing seasons, with workers transitioning between seeding, cultivation, pest management, harvesting, and processing duties based on immediate requirements. Cross-training programs ensure that workers can perform multiple functions, increasing operational flexibility while reducing dependence on specialized personnel who might become unavailable due to illness, injury, or reassignment. Processing operations begin during late afternoon periods when harvesting activities reach daily quotas and raw materials require immediate transformation into preservation-compatible formats. Workers transition from field duties to facility operations, operating machinery that cleans, sorts, and processes agricultural products into forms suitable for interplanetary distribution. Processing work involves different hazards than field operations, including exposure to industrial machinery, chemical preservatives, and repetitive motion injuries that develop over extended operational periods. Quality control procedures occur throughout processing operations, with workers responsible for identifying contaminated or substandard materials that must be eliminated before reaching distribution systems. Quality standards require immediate rejection of products that fail to meet established criteria for appearance, contamination levels, or nutritional content. Rejected materials undergo waste processing that converts them into useful byproducts ranging from fertilizer to construction materials, ensuring that economic value is extracted even from materials unsuitable for human consumption. Documentation requirements mandate detailed record-keeping regarding all aspects of agricultural operations, including individual worker productivity, resource utilization, equipment maintenance, and quality control results. Workers must maintain accurate logs that track their activities throughout operational periods, providing data used for efficiency analysis, resource planning, and personnel evaluation. The documentation serves both operational and administrative purposes, supporting immediate decision-making while providing historical data for long-term planning and optimization. Evening return to housing complexes occurs via the same transportation systems used for morning deployment, with workers arriving at different times based on their specific duty assignments and completion of daily requirements. Some operations require extended hours during peak seasonal periods, while others conclude early when weather conditions or equipment problems prevent continuation of planned activities. Transportation schedules accommodate these variations through flexible routing that ensures all workers return to housing facilities before night cycle environmental controls begin operation. Then there is the moment everyone remembers and no one explains. I was assigned to Sector 15 Gamma for routine harvest inspection when the atmospheric processors began emitting chemical signatures that didn't match standard operating parameters. The readings appeared on my monitoring equipment at 13:47 hours local time, showing elevated concentrations of compounds that weren't supposed to exist in cultivation zone atmospheres. Protocol required immediate communication with supervisory personnel, but atmospheric interference prevented reliable transmission to coordination centers. The readings continued climbing throughout the afternoon shift, reaching levels that triggered automatic warnings on my protective equipment. Other workers in adjacent sectors reported similar anomalies through fragmentary radio communications that suggested a zone-wide atmospheric event affecting multiple cultivation areas simultaneously. Supervisory response teams seem to be experiencing their own communication difficulties, as emergency coordination frequencies remained silent despite multiple attempts to establish contact. By 1500 hours, the atmospheric contamination had reached levels that exceeded protection capabilities of standard field equipment. Breathing apparatus began issuing hazard warnings indicating that filtration systems were approaching capacity limits. Other workers began experiencing symptoms including respiratory distress, skin irritation, and neurological effects ranging from disorientation to complete loss of consciousness. The situation clearly required immediate evacuation, but no evacuation orders arrived through normal command channels. We initiated emergency procedures without supervisory authorization, abandoning assigned duties to seek shelter in emergency bunkers positioned throughout cultivation zones for precisely this type of incident. The bunkers contained independent atmospheric systems designed to maintain habitable conditions during environmental emergencies, along with communication equipment for coordination with emergency response teams. However, the communication equipment proved as unreliable as field radios, producing only static when we attempted to contact emergency services. The atmospheric event intensified throughout the evening, with contamination levels rising to concentrations that would have been immediately fatal without bunker protection. External monitoring equipment indicated that the contamination covered most of the northern cultivation hemisphere, affecting millions of hectares of crops and potentially thousands of agricultural workers caught in field operations when the event began. The source appeared to be multiple atmospheric processing stations, simultaneously releasing their stored chemical reserves into local atmospheres. Emergency supplies in the bunker provided sufficient nutrition and water for 72 hours, assuming normal consumption rates and environmental conditions. However, stress and fear accelerated resource consumption, while uncertainty about rescue timing made rationing decisions increasingly crucial. We established consumption schedules based on optimistic assumptions about emergency response capabilities, hoping that specialized teams would locate and extract us before supplies reached critical levels. Communication attempts continued throughout the first night, with different workers trying various frequencies and transmission methods to reach emergency services. We eventually established intermittent contact with other emergency bunkers, confirming that the atmospheric event affected a much larger area than initially suspected. Reports from other locations described similar conditions: sudden atmospheric contamination, communication failures, and lack of response from emergency services or supervisory personnel. The second day brought additional complications as external atmospheric monitoring indicated that contamination levels were increasing rather than dissipating as normally expected from emergency atmospheric releases. This suggested either continuing chemical emissions from processing stations or some type of atmospheric reaction that was generating additional contamination compounds. Either possibility implied that the emergency would continue indefinitely rather than resolving within normal time frames expected for processing station malfunctions. Food rationing became increasingly stringent as we adjusted consumption schedules based on revised estimates of emergency duration. The bunker contained emergency nutrition designed for short-term survival rather than extended occupancy, requiring careful calculation of minimum caloric requirements balanced against unknown rescue timeline. Workers with medical conditions requiring specialized nutrition faced particular risks, as emergency supplies contained only standardized formulations unsuitable for individual dietary requirements. By the third day, several workers had developed symptoms suggesting that contamination was penetrating bunker atmospheric systems despite their supposed independence from external conditions. Respiratory problems, skin lesions, and neurological symptoms similar to those experienced in the field began appearing among bunker occupants. This development implied either bunker system failure or contamination characteristics that exceeded design parameters of emergency protection systems. External monitoring equipment began providing impossible readings during the third night, showing atmospheric compositions that violated basic chemical principles and contamination concentrations that should have been immediately lethal to all organic life. The readings suggested that whatever was occurring outside the bunker represented something more complex than simple atmospheric processing system malfunction. The data made no sense according to established atmospheric chemistry, implying either equipment failure or environmental conditions beyond our understanding. On the fourth morning, external atmospheric monitoring suddenly returned to normal parameters, showing standard atmospheric composition and acceptable contamination levels. The transition occurred within minutes, as if someone had simply switched off whatever process had been generating the emergency conditions. Communication systems simultaneously resumed normal operation, allowing us to contact emergency services and request extraction from emergency bunkers. Emergency response teams arrived within hours, conducting standard evacuation procedures and medical examination of all bunker occupants. Medical teams found evidence of contamination exposure, but reported that symptom severity was much lower than expected based on atmospheric readings recorded during the emergency period. Debriefing sessions focused on equipment performance and emergency procedure compliance rather than the causes or characteristics of the atmospheric event itself. Official reports classified the incident as atmospheric processing system malfunction with secondary environmental effects, providing technical explanations for contamination sources and response procedures. The reports made no mention of impossible atmospheric readings, communication system failures, or the sudden resolution of emergency conditions. Workers who questioned official explanations received assignment to different cultivation zones or transfer to alternative agricultural duties. Within weeks, normal operations resumed in affected sectors with minimal reference to the incident beyond enhanced safety protocols and equipment upgrades. New workers replaced those who had been transferred or reassigned, receiving standard training without mention of recent emergency events. Atmospheric processing stations continued normal operations with no apparent modifications or investigations into potential malfunction causes. I returned to routine harvest inspection duties in Sector 15 Gamma exactly 37 days after the incident, finding crops that had somehow survived atmospheric contamination events that should have destroyed all organic life across millions of hectares. The plants showed no signs of damage, disease, or contamination effects, despite having been exposed to chemical concentrations that our monitoring equipment had recorded as immediately lethal. Official agricultural reports showed no productivity losses or crop damage from the incident. The atmospheric monitoring equipment I carried showed normal readings and responded appropriately to test procedures, but I never again trusted the readings it provided during routine operations. The memory of impossible chemical compositions and contamination levels that violated basic atmospheric chemistry remained vivid despite official explanations and reassignment of personnel who had shared the experience. Something had occurred in those cultivation zones that exceeded both equipment capabilities and administrative willingness to acknowledge. After the smoke clears, the rules return. Agricultural world governance operates through layered administrative systems designed to maximize productivity while maintaining social stability among populations whose labor directly enables imperial food security. The Planetary Agricultural Council serves as primary governing body, composed of representatives from major cultivation zones, processing facilities, and transportation networks. Council members receive appointment based on demonstrated expertise in agricultural production, combined with proven loyalty to imperial doctrine and administrative efficiency requirements. Daily operations follow comprehensive regulatory frameworks developed through centuries of agricultural optimization research and practical experience managing large-scale food production systems. These regulations address every aspect of agricultural life, from individual worker productivity requirements to planetary-scale resource allocation decisions. Compliance monitoring occurs through continuous surveillance systems that track individual performance, facility efficiency, and overall production metrics against established benchmarks and quota requirements. Worker discipline systems emphasize immediate correction of performance deficiencies through graduated response protocols ranging from additional training to complete elimination from agricultural operations. Minor infractions, tardiness, equipment misuse, failure to meet daily productivity quotas, result in reduced nutrition allocations, extended work periods, or assignment to more hazardous duties. Major violations, sabotage, insubordination, failure to report contamination incidents, trigger immediate review processes that typically conclude with worker elimination and processing into corp starch production systems. Production quotas operate on multiple timeframes designed to ensure consistent output while accommodating seasonal variations and environmental challenges. Daily quotas establish minimum productivity requirements for individual workers and facility operations. Weekly quotas aggregate daily performance into larger metrics used for resource planning and personnel evaluation. Seasonal quotas reflect agricultural cycles and determine overall success or failure of production planning. Annual quotas guide long-term strategic decisions and influence planetary resource allocations from Central Imperial Administration. Quality control enforcement involves systematic testing of all agricultural products before authorization for interplanetary distribution. Testing protocols examine nutritional content, contamination levels, preservation characteristics, and compatibility with transportation and storage systems used throughout the Imperial supply network. Products that fail quality standards face immediate destruction or processing into alternative products suitable for different uses. Quality control personnel possess authority to halt production operations until compliance issues receive resolution. Resource allocation decisions balance immediate operational requirements against long-term sustainability considerations through complex administrative processes that prioritize imperial food security over local concerns. Water resources receive allocation based on crop productivity, potential, and strategic importance to overall food production goals. Chemical inputs, fertilizers, pesticides, processing compounds are distributed according to efficiency metrics that maximize yield per unit of resource investment. Human resources face assignment based on capability assessments and operational requirements rather than personal preferences or local community relationships. Transportation and distribution networks operate under direct imperial oversight to ensure reliable delivery of agricultural products to consumption centers throughout the galaxy. Planetary spaceports receive priority infrastructure investment to maintain cargo handling capacity necessary for interplanetary food shipments. Distribution scheduling follows strategic priorities that ensure military forces and essential personnel receive adequate nutrition before civilian populations. Emergency reserves maintain stockpiles sufficient to address short-term supply disruptions while production facilities undergo maintenance or expansion. Medical services for agricultural workers focus on maintaining operational capability rather than comprehensive health care. providing treatment for injuries and illnesses that directly affect work performance while minimizing resource expenditure on conditions that do not threaten productivity. Occupational health programs monitor worker exposure to agricultural chemicals and environmental hazards. Implementing protective measures when cost-benefit analysis demonstrates economic advantage to worker health preservation. Reproductive health services ensure optimal population replacement rates while preventing genetic problems that might compromise future worker effectiveness. Communication systems maintain continuous monitoring of agricultural operations through networks that connect individual workers to facility supervisors, sector coordinators, and planetary administrators. Communication protocols require regular status reports from all operational levels, creating comprehensive data streams that enable immediate response to production problems or security threats. Emergency communication procedures ensure that critical information reaches appropriate decision-makers within timeframes necessary for effective intervention during crisis situations. Security measures protect agricultural operations against various threats, including sabotage, theft, contamination, and worker rebellion through comprehensive surveillance and response capabilities. Security personnel receive training in crowd control, investigation techniques, and elimination of threats to agricultural productivity. Intelligence networks monitor worker populations for signs of organized resistance or ideological contamination that might threaten operational stability. Preventive security measures include background investigation of all personnel, systematic monitoring of communication, and immediate response to suspected security violations. Administrative oversight functions coordinate between local agricultural operations and imperial authorities responsible for overall food security planning and resource allocation. Oversight personnel ensure that local decisions align with imperial strategic objectives while maintaining operational efficiency at facility and sector levels. Reporting requirements provide central authorities with detailed information about production capabilities, resource requirements, and potential problems that might affect broader food security planning. Legal frameworks governing agricultural operations emphasize imperial authority over local customs or individual rights, establishing clear hierarchies of authority and responsibility for all aspects of food production. Agricultural law addresses property rights, labor relations, environmental protection, and resource utilization through comprehensive codes that prioritize productivity over competing interests. Judicial processes focus on rapid resolution of disputes that might interfere with agricultural operations while maintaining social stability among worker populations. Environmental monitoring systems track ecological conditions affecting agricultural productivity while identifying potential threats to long-term sustainability of food production operations. Monitoring networks measure soil health, water quality, atmospheric composition, and biodiversity levels throughout agricultural zones. Environmental protection measures address immediate threats to productivity while balancing conservation requirements against operational efficiency demands. Long-term environmental planning attempts to maintain agricultural capability across extended timeframes despite intensive cultivation practices. Training and education programs prepare workers for specialized roles within agricultural operations while maintaining appropriate ideological conditioning to prevent resistance to imperial authority. Training curricula combine practical skills development with religious instruction, emphasizing the sacred nature of agricultural work and individual duty to imperial survival. Advanced training opportunities exist for workers demonstrating exceptional capability and loyalty, leading to supervisory positions or transfer to alternative agricultural duties, offering better working conditions. Research and development activities focus on improving agricultural productivity through technological advancement, genetic optimization, and process enhancement. Research priorities reflect immediate operational requirements rather than theoretical interests, emphasizing practical solutions to production challenges and efficiency improvements. Development programs test new techniques and technologies under controlled conditions before implementing them across larger agricultural operations. Innovation receives encouragement when it demonstrates clear benefits to productivity or resource efficiency. Every harvest season brings new challenges that test the resilience of agricultural systems designed to operate under extreme conditions while maintaining the productivity levels essential to imperial survival. Seasonal variations in weather, pest populations, and environmental conditions require constant adaptation of operational procedures and resource allocation decisions. Workers face different hazards and productivity requirements as agricultural cycles progress, demanding flexibility and endurance that often exceed normal human capabilities. Spring preparation involves extensive soil treatment, equipment maintenance, and seed preparation activities that establish foundation for successful growing seasons. Workers operate massive terraforming equipment that prepares cultivation zones for optimal crop production, applying chemical treatments that enhance soil fertility while eliminating organisms that might interfere with agricultural operations. Equipment maintenance requires specialized technical skills and access to replacement parts that may be unavailable during supply disruptions. Seed preparation involves genetic modification and chemical treatment processes designed to maximize crop yields while reducing vulnerability to environmental hazards. Planting operations require precise coordination between automated systems and human labor to ensure optimal crop establishment across millions of hectares of cultivation zones. Workers operate seeding equipment that places genetically modified seeds at specific depths and intervals calculated to maximize productivity per unit of cultivated area. Coordination requirements demand complex scheduling and communication systems that enable rapid response to equipment failures or environmental problems that might disrupt planting schedules. Quality control during planting affects entire seasonal productivity, making accuracy and attention to detail essential for successful operations. Growing season maintenance involves continuous monitoring and intervention to ensure optimal crop development while protecting agricultural investments against various threats. Workers conduct systematic inspections of crop health, identifying problems requiring immediate attention before they spread to larger areas. Pest management requires strategic application of chemical and biological controls designed to eliminate threats while preserving beneficial organisms essential to agricultural ecosystems. Irrigation and fertilization systems require regular maintenance and adjustment to maintain optimal growing conditions throughout cultivation zones. Harvesting represents the culmination of seasonal agricultural efforts and determines whether production quotas will be achieved or exceeded. Workers operate complex harvesting equipment that separates crops from agricultural plants while minimizing waste and maintaining quality standards necessary for interplanetary distribution. Harvesting schedules must balance optimal crop maturity against equipment availability and weather conditions that affect operation feasibility. Quality control during harvesting determines which products qualify for premium distribution markets and which require processing into alternative products. Processing operations transform raw agricultural products into preservation-compatible formats suitable for long-term storage and interplanetary transportation. Workers operate industrial facilities that clean, sort, package, and preserve agricultural products according to specifications designed to maintain nutritional content and prevent contamination during extended storage periods. Processing techniques vary based on product type and intended use, requiring specialized knowledge and equipment for different agricultural commodities. Quality control throughout processing operations ensures that final products meet standards necessary for imperial food security requirements. Storage and distribution preparation involves comprehensive logistics planning to ensure timely delivery of agricultural products to consumption centers throughout the galaxy. Workers operate warehouse facilities that maintain optimal storage conditions while organizing products for efficient loading into interplanetary transport systems. Distribution planning must coordinate between seasonal production cycles and continuous consumption requirements, maintaining strategic reserves while minimizing storage costs and product deterioration. Transportation coordination ensures that products reach destinations within time frames necessary to prevent spoilage or supply disruptions. Winter maintenance activities prepare agricultural systems for subsequent growing seasons while providing employment for worker populations during periods of reduced agricultural activity. Workers conduct comprehensive equipment overhaul, facility maintenance, and infrastructure improvement projects that enhance productivity and reliability of agricultural operations. Training programs during winter periods provide opportunities for skill development and cross-training that increase operational flexibility. Planning activities during winter months establish operational parameters and resource requirements for subsequent agricultural cycles. Environmental hazards vary by season, but consistently threaten both agricultural productivity and worker safety through exposure to toxic chemicals, extreme weather conditions, and industrial accidents. Chemical contamination from pesticides, fertilizers, and processing compounds creates chronic health risks that accumulate over extended exposure periods. Weather-related hazards include temperature extremes, atmospheric disturbances, and precipitation patterns that affect both worker safety and crop viability. Industrial accidents involving agricultural machinery, chemical systems, and transportation equipment pose immediate threats to worker survival and operational continuity. Atmospheric conditions on agricultural worlds often reflect the intensive chemical applications necessary for maximum crop productivity, creating breathing environments that gradually degrade human health despite protective equipment and medical intervention. Workers develop characteristic respiratory problems, skin conditions, and neurological symptoms that worsen with continued exposure to agricultural chemicals and atmospheric processing byproducts. Medical treatment focuses on maintaining work capability rather than eliminating health problems that result inevitably from agricultural employment. Chronic health degradation becomes an accepted aspect of agricultural work rather than preventable occupational hazard. Seasonal psychological challenges affect worker populations as they adapt to changing work requirements, environmental conditions, and social dynamics throughout agricultural cycles. Isolation from outside communities creates dependency on agricultural work relationships that may prove unstable during stressful periods. Productivity pressures vary seasonally but consistently exceed normal human capability, creating chronic stress that manifests through various psychological and behavioral problems. Limited recreational opportunities and restricted personal autonomy contribute to psychological deterioration that affects both individual workers and community stability. A few things still work, though none are kind. Survival on agricultural worlds requires specific adaptations that allow workers to function effectively within environments designed to maximize productivity rather than human welfare. Successful long-term residents develop comprehensive strategies for managing occupational hazards, social isolation, and psychological stress that characterize agricultural employment. These strategies represent evolutionary responses to conditions that exceed normal human tolerance levels, requiring systematic modification of behavior, expectations, and social relationships. Physical conditioning programs help workers develop resistance to environmental hazards and occupational stresses that would incapacitate individuals without appropriate preparation. Conditioning routines focus on respiratory capacity, chemical tolerance, and endurance training designed to maintain functionality under extreme working conditions. Workers learn to recognize early symptoms of chemical exposure, environmental stress, and occupational injury that require immediate intervention to prevent permanent health damage. Physical preparation includes dietary modification, exercise regimens, and medical monitoring that enhance resilience while minimizing resource requirements. Protective equipment utilization involves comprehensive training in selection, maintenance, and proper use of specialized gear designed to minimize exposure to agricultural hazards. Workers learn to evaluate equipment effectiveness under different conditions and make appropriate adjustments based on specific hazards encountered during different duties. Equipment maintenance skills become essential for continued protection, as replacement equipment may be unavailable during supply disruptions or budget limitations. Personal protective equipment represents individual responsibility rather than employer obligation, requiring workers to invest personal resources in their own safety equipment. Chemical exposure management involves systematic approaches to minimizing contamination while maintaining productivity requirements that demand direct contact with hazardous substances. Workers develop comprehensive understanding of chemical properties, interaction effects, and protective measures appropriate for different compounds encountered during agricultural operations. Decontamination procedures become routine practices that workers perform multiple times daily to reduce cumulative exposure effects. Medical monitoring helps identify early signs of chemical poisoning that require immediate treatment to prevent permanent health damage. Social support networks develop organically within worker communities, providing mutual assistance for practical problems and emotional challenges that characterize agricultural employment. Support networks typically avoid discussion of work-related trauma, focusing instead on shared recreational activities and practical assistance with daily survival requirements. Veteran workers provide guidance and practical advice to newcomers, sharing knowledge about hazard avoidance and effective work techniques that improve survival prospects. Community relationships offer psychological stability and practical assistance during health emergencies or work-related difficulties. Religious observance provides psychological comfort and community connection for workers who can reconcile agricultural employment with spiritual beliefs about human dignity and divine purpose. Religious practices typically emphasize themes of sacrifice, service, and divine reward for suffering endured in service to imperial survival. Community worship offers social connection and shared meaning that counteracts isolation and moral confusion resulting from agricultural work requirements. However, religious doubt frequently develops among workers whose daily experiences conflict with theological teachings about divine justice and human value. Recreational activities serve essential functions in maintaining psychological health among populations subjected to chronic stress and limited personal autonomy. Available recreational opportunities typically include simple games, reading materials, and social activities that require minimal resources or specialized equipment. Workers develop creative approaches to entertainment that provide mental stimulation and social interaction within constraints imposed by work schedules and facility limitations. Physical recreation helps maintain fitness levels necessary for occupational performance while providing psychological relief from work-related stress. Skill development opportunities allow ambitious workers to acquire capabilities that improve their survival prospects and potentially qualify them for better working conditions or alternative employment. Technical skills related to equipment operation and maintenance offer advancement possibilities within agricultural operations. Administrative capabilities may lead to supervisory positions that provide improved working conditions despite continued involvement in agricultural operations. Cross-training in multiple specialties increases individual value and provides flexibility during personnel shortages or operational changes. Health management strategies focus on maintaining functional capability while accepting that agricultural employment inevitably produces chronic health problems that cannot be completely prevented or cured. Workers learn to recognize symptoms requiring immediate medical attention while managing chronic conditions through dietary modification, rest optimization, and stress reduction techniques. Preventive health measures emphasize avoiding additional health risks that might compound occupational hazards. Medical resource conservation becomes personal responsibility as comprehensive health care remains unavailable for agricultural workers. Financial planning involves careful resource management to maximize survival prospects while preparing for inevitable health decline and eventual inability to continue agricultural employment. Workers develop understanding of resource allocation systems that determine their access to nutrition, medical care, and housing accommodations. Saving strategies focus on acquiring resources necessary for survival during health emergencies or work-related injuries that might temporarily reduce earning capacity. Financial planning typically involves accepting poverty as permanent condition while focusing on immediate survival requirements. Information management involves careful attention to communications and social interactions that might result in security attention or administrative sanctions. Workers learn to avoid discussing sensitive topics, expressing dissatisfaction with working conditions, or sharing information that might be interpreted as subversive or disloyal to imperial authorities. Communication skills focus on maintaining necessary social relationships while avoiding conversations that might create security risks. Information discretion becomes essential survival skill for maintaining employment and avoiding reassignment to more dangerous duties. Emergency preparedness involves systematic planning for various crisis situations that threaten individual survival or community stability. Emergency supplies focus on basic necessities that might become unavailable during supply disruptions or facility emergencies. Communication plans ensure that workers can maintain contact with support networks during crisis situations. Evacuation planning identifies potential escape routes and survival resources that might be necessary during environmental emergencies or security incidents that threaten agricultural operations. The Imperium's agricultural worlds exist in hundreds of distinct categories, each optimized for particular types of food production and environmental conditions. Classification systems reflect both environmental characteristics and specialized production capabilities that determine planetary roles within larger food security planning. Understanding these classifications provides insight into the variety of agricultural employment opportunities and survival challenges that characterize different types of food-producing worlds. Grain worlds represent the most common agricultural classification, featuring massive monoculture operations that produce cereal crops suitable for long-term storage and interplanetary distribution. These worlds typically feature temperate climates, extensive arable land, and minimal population density to maximize cultivation area. Grain production involves highly mechanized operations that require relatively few workers per hectare, but demand intensive labor during planting and harvesting seasons. Workers on grain worlds face exposure to agricultural chemicals, industrial accidents, and seasonal unemployment that characterizes large-scale mechanized farming operations. Protein worlds specialize in livestock production through industrial farming operations that house billions of animals in facilities designed to maximize meat and dairy production per unit of space and resource investment. These worlds feature controlled environmental conditions, extensive processing facilities, and specialized transportation systems for live animal management. Protein production requires intensive labor for animal care, facility maintenance, and processing operations. Workers face exposure to biological hazards, chemical contamination from animal waste processing, and psychological stress from continuous exposure to industrial animal agriculture. Hydroponic worlds utilize advanced growing systems that produce crops in controlled environments independent of local soil or climate conditions. These worlds typically feature desert, Arctic, or other extreme environmental conditions that require complete environmental control for successful agriculture. Hydroponic operations demand highly skilled workers capable of operating complex technical systems while maintaining precise environmental parameters. Workers benefit from controlled working conditions, but face risks from chemical contamination, system failures, and dependence on complex technology that may prove unreliable during emergencies. Ocean worlds feature floating agricultural platforms that harvest marine life while cultivating sea-based vegetation suitable for human consumption. These worlds require specialized maritime skills and equipment designed for agricultural operations in aquatic environments. Ocean agriculture involves unique hazards, including weather-related risks, equipment failures in marine environments, and isolation from emergency services during storms or equipment problems. Workers typically possess maritime experience and specialized technical training necessary for aquatic agricultural operations. Corpse starch worlds specialize in processing organic waste materials, including human remains, into nutritionally complete food supplements suitable for mass distribution throughout the Imperium. These worlds feature extensive processing facilities, chemical treatment systems, and quality control operations designed to ensure product safety while maximizing resource utilization. Corpse starch production requires workers capable of managing both technical operations and psychological challenges associated with processing human remains for food production. Workers face unique psychological stresses along with standard chemical and industrial hazards. Desert worlds utilize advanced irrigation and environmental control systems to produce crops in extremely arid conditions through comprehensive water management and soil enhancement programs. These worlds require specialized knowledge of water conservation, soil chemistry, and climate control systems designed to maintain agricultural productivity despite hostile environmental conditions. Desert agriculture involves extreme temperature exposure, water scarcity challenges, and dependence on complex environmental control systems. Workers must adapt to harsh physical conditions while maintaining technical competence in specialized agricultural systems. Fungal cultivation worlds produce mushroom crops and related organisms in controlled underground facilities that provide optimal growing conditions for specialized agricultural products. These worlds feature extensive tunnel systems, controlled atmospheric conditions, and specialized harvesting equipment designed for subterranean agricultural operations. Fungal cultivation requires workers capable of operating in confined spaces with limited natural lighting while maintaining precise environmental controls. Workers face risks from atmospheric contamination, structural collapse, and psychological problems associated with extended underground employment. Ice worlds utilize geothermal energy and advanced greenhouse technology to produce crops despite extremely cold surface conditions that would normally prevent agricultural operations. These worlds require comprehensive environmental control systems, specialized cold weather equipment, and heating systems designed to maintain agricultural productivity in Arctic conditions. Ice world agriculture involves extreme cold exposure, equipment reliability challenges, and isolation during seasonal weather periods that prevent transportation or communication. Workers require specialized cold weather training and equipment, along with technical competence in greenhouse operations. Processing worlds specialize in transforming raw agricultural products from other worlds into finished food products suitable for long-term storage and distribution throughout the imperial supply network. These worlds feature massive industrial facilities, chemical processing systems, and quality control operations designed to maximize efficiency while maintaining product standards. Food processing requires workers capable of operating complex industrial equipment while maintaining quality control standards necessary for interplanetary food distribution. Workers face industrial hazards, chemical exposure, and pressure to maintain productivity levels that often exceed safe operational parameters. Each world classification presents unique challenges and survival requirements that demand specialized knowledge and adaptive strategies. Workers typically spend entire careers within single world classifications, developing expertise that proves essential for survival but limits their flexibility for transfer to alternative agricultural employment. Understanding world classification systems helps workers make informed decisions about employment opportunities while preparing appropriately for specific challenges associated with different types of agricultural operations. From soil to table, the Imperial Food Distribution Network spans galactic distances while maintaining quality and safety standards necessary to prevent mass starvation across 10,000 worlds. This network represents one of humanity's greatest logistical achievements, coordinating production, processing, transportation, and distribution of food products across spatial and temporal scales that challenge human comprehension. Understanding food distribution systems provides insight into the larger economic and political structures that govern agricultural operations throughout the Imperium. Production coordination involves comprehensive planning systems that balance agricultural output from thousands of worlds against consumption requirements for quadrillions of Imperial citizens. Coordination systems must account for seasonal variations, transportation delays, storage limitations, and emergency reserve requirements while maintaining strategic flexibility for military operations and crisis response. Production planning operates on multiple time frames ranging from daily allocation decisions to century-spanning strategic resource development programs. Transportation systems utilize specialized cargo vessels designed for efficient movement of food products across interstellar distances while maintaining product quality during extended voyage periods. Food transportation requires environmental control systems, preservation technologies, and handling equipment designed to prevent contamination or spoilage during journeys that may last months or years. Transportation scheduling must coordinate between production cycles and consumption requirements while accommodating unpredictable delays and route changes resulting from military operations or navigational hazards. Quality control throughout the distribution network ensures that food products meet safety and nutritional standards despite extended storage and transportation periods that create numerous contamination opportunities. Quality control systems operate at every stage of the distribution process, from initial production through final retail distribution. Testing procedures identify contaminated products before they reach consumer populations while maintaining distribution efficiency necessary for imperial food security. Storage facilities throughout the distribution network provide strategic reserves while accommodating seasonal production cycles and unpredictable consumption variations resulting from military operations, population changes, and emergency situations. Storage systems must maintain optimal preservation conditions while providing rapid access to stored products when distribution requirements change. Strategic reserve planning balances immediate availability against long-term storage capacity while minimizing resource investment in storage infrastructure. Regional distribution centers coordinate between interplanetary transportation systems and local consumption requirements, providing buffer capacity that accommodates supply disruptions while maintaining consistent food availability for regional populations. Distribution centers operate complex logistics systems that track product movement, manage inventory levels, and coordinate with local distribution networks. Regional coordination becomes essential during crisis situations when normal distribution patterns face disruption from military operations or transportation problems. Retail distribution systems deliver food products to individual consumers through networks that accommodate diverse local conditions while maintaining centralized control over resource allocation and pricing policies. Retail operations must balance consumer preferences against strategic resource allocation priorities that favor military and administrative personnel over general civilian populations. Local distribution reflects broader imperial policies regarding social hierarchy and resource allocation rather than simple economic efficiency considerations. Pricing and allocation policies determine which populations receive access to different types of food products based on social status, occupational importance, and political loyalty rather than economic capacity or consumer preference. Allocation systems prioritize military forces, administrative personnel, and essential workers while providing minimal nutrition for general civilian populations. Pricing policies serve social control functions rather than economic efficiency objectives, using food access as incentive for political compliance and productive labor. Emergency distribution protocols provide frameworks for maintaining food security during crisis situations that disrupt normal distribution patterns. Emergency systems maintain strategic reserves while providing rapid response capabilities for military operations, natural disasters, and security emergencies that threaten regional food supplies. Emergency distribution emphasizes maintaining functionality of essential personnel and military forces rather than comprehensive civilian support. The food distribution network operates through coordination between numerous imperial agencies, including the Administratum, Astra Militarum, Imperial Navy, and planetary governments. Interagency coordination requires complex administrative procedures that balance competing priorities while maintaining overall system functionality. Bureaucratic complexity creates numerous opportunities for inefficiency, corruption, and system failure that threaten food security despite extensive administrative oversight. Monitoring and evaluation systems track distribution network performance while identifying problems requiring immediate attention or long-term strategic adjustment. Monitoring systems provide data necessary for resource planning, operational optimization, and strategic decision-making regarding food security policy. Evaluation procedures assess system performance against established objectives while identifying areas requiring improvement or modification. The complexity and scale of imperial food distribution creates numerous vulnerabilities that threaten system stability and functionality. These vulnerabilities include transportation disruptions, storage facility failures, quality control breakdowns, and administrative corruption that can cascade into regional or system-wide food security crises. Understanding these vulnerabilities helps explain why agricultural workers face such intensive pressure to maintain productivity despite harsh working conditions and occupational hazards. Step back far enough and the pattern refuses to blink. The Imperium's agricultural worlds represent humanity's most successful adaptation to survival requirements that exceed normal biological limitations. transforming entire planetary systems into biological factories capable of feeding quadrillions of consumers across galactic distances. This transformation demonstrates both humanity's technological capabilities and its willingness to sacrifice individual welfare for species survival in a universe that regards human existence as temporary aberration requiring immediate correction. Agricultural world populations exist as both victims and instruments of this survival strategy, their individual lives subsumed into larger biological processes that sustain imperial civilization against cosmic forces determined to eliminate human presence entirely. Their suffering enables continued existence for trillions of humans who never experience agricultural employment directly, but depend absolutely upon food production systems that operate through systematic exploitation of agricultural workers. The moral mathematics remain unchanged across 10 millennia. Better to sacrifice millions of agricultural workers than lose billions of consumers to starvation and systemic collapse. The agricultural transformation of entire worlds reflects humanity's rejection of natural limitations in favor of technological solutions that prioritize survival over traditional concepts of environmental stewardship or individual dignity. Agricultural worlds exist as proof that humans can remake entire planetary systems to serve human needs, even when the process requires systematic destruction of natural ecosystems and transformation of human communities into biological components within larger industrial systems. The workers who staff these agricultural systems understand their role as essential contributors to humanity's greatest achievement: continued survival in a universe designed to eliminate human existence through starvation, military defeat, or biological extinction. Their individual sacrifice enables collective success on scales that dwarf previous human achievements, sustaining populations that would be impossible without industrial agricultural systems that operate beyond normal environmental or social constraints. The agricultural worlds continue to evolve, becoming more efficient and productive through technological advancement and organizational optimization that refines the transformation of human life into agricultural utility. Future developments will enhance productivity while reducing waste, creating agricultural systems capable of supporting even larger human populations despite continued expansion of imperial territory and consumption requirements. The pattern reveals humanity's fundamental adaptability and determination to survive regardless of individual cost or moral compromise required to achieve species-level objectives. Agricultural worlds exist because they work, because they provide the food security necessary for imperial expansion and military operations that protect human civilization against existential threats requiring immediate response through application of maximum available resources. The great irony lies in agricultural worlds' success at their intended function. They feed the Imperium while consuming the humans who operate them, sustaining life through systematic transformation of life itself into consumable products suitable for interplanetary distribution. The process continues because it must continue, because stopping would threaten the food security that enables continued human existence across 10,000 worlds facing constant threat from forces that would eliminate human life entirely. The Emperor's divine wisdom encompasses this contradiction without resolving it, recognizing that human survival requires both agricultural production and agricultural workers, food security and human sacrifice, the preservation of human life and the systematic consumption of human life in service of larger survival objectives. The agricultural worlds exist at the intersection of these irreconcilable demands, serving as biological engines that convert human existence into human survival on scales that encompass entire galactic regions. In the end, the agricultural worlds succeed because they accept the fundamental reality of imperial existence. Human life constitutes raw material for human survival. Individual dignity represents luxury that species cannot afford, and moral compromise becomes necessary virtue when the alternative involves extinction of human consciousness from a universe that would not notice its absence. Paradise grows in soil enriched with human sacrifice, and the harvest never ends.